Hello and welcome, everyone. We're glad for you to be here with us this month. This is the fourth and last in our series of Operational Clarity. This is a four-part series that we've run to kind of kick off 2025 and start anew. This webinar is proudly sponsored by iTech Training, your trusted resource for comprehensive training, professional development, and enhancing your practice's profitability. Over the past 4 months, we've discussed tools and tactics for ophthalmic admins, streamlining patient flow, and top metrics that ophthalmology practices should track. And if you missed any of these webinars, you can view them at www.itechtraining.com/webinars. So all of our webinars are recorded, and then you can just watch them at your leisure if you can't attend live. Mandy Cansler is our speaker again today, and she has a keen eye for looking at processes and seeing opportunities for improvement. She also does clinical training, operational development, leadership training, and much more. Mandy will be sharing her valuable insights with us today. Welcome, Mandy.
Thank you, Sharon. Hello, and welcome everybody to our webinar. If you're returning to us, thank you for joining us again. We hope that today you take some tips and pearls away that are going to be helpful as we look forward of how to lead our practice towards the future. Today, we're going to talk on the global trends that are driving the future. 2025 marks a turning point for ophthalmology. Why specifically for this year? Well, there's the rising demand and rapid innovation and shifting care models that are converging. We've had a recent election year. There's been changes in the economy. So lots of things to look at and to consider as we move forward. The choices that we make today will absolutely define how we deliver eye care tomorrow. So today, the topics that we're going to touch on are workforce, practice models, innovation, as well as expectations. So the demand for eye care is going up, but the workforce isn't keeping pace. So looking ahead over the next decade, it could be really tough if we don't address what some of these gaps are. There's a growing gap in the workforce versus the demand. A really interesting statistic that you may not be aware of is that over the next decade and a half, ophthalmologists are expected to decline. The accessibility to ophthalmologists that are going to med school and going to be available for us is expected to decline by at least 12%. But the patient demand is going to increase by around 24%. So what's at stake? Well, this would slower access for patient care, as well as reduce the quality of care because of the delay in care. And what can we do about that? So I think just having the awareness, talking about that, and having the conversations in advance of how can you be more efficient in your practice to increase the access that patients have to you. Learning to delegate well so that you're able to use your people differently, work smarter, not harder, right? We all heard that saying. Also to increase the impact that your team makes without increasing the overhead. We have to think about, how do we move efficiently so that patients aren't waiting as long to get into our practice without decreasing what the quality of care is. Each physician is able to deliver a certain amount, kind of that magic number in their clinic without compromising quality care. So understanding how can we use everyone to fill in the gaps around the provider so the provider is able to function doing what only they can do. And all of the support staff are able to fill in those gaps to be as efficient as possible to be able to move patients through and to see them more efficiently. Now, you may not have learned very much about practice models before now. Maybe you've always worked in a private practice, or maybe you've only been part of a private equity. This has definitely been a topic that's been on the up and up over the last decade, specifically in the last 5 years. And I think when private equity first joined ophthalmology, really kind of made its way into the space, it was scary. And we're thinking about it. corporate world, and how is that going to change, and are they going to scale and sell, and going from private practice into private equity in the beginning kind of had a bad rap. But there's pros and cons for both. We're going to talk about there's really not one size that fits all. The leaders must weigh out what the values are, the vision, and sustainability when considering what these practice models are. So some pros and cons are for private equity. The pros are scalable operations. Private equity backed groups often bring the ability to expand rapidly through infrastructure, technology, as well as support staff. Being able to offer more of a robust, because it is a larger industry, if you will, within itself. So it encompasses a lot of benefits that can be helpful. As well as another pro for being a part of private equity is business expertise and efficiencies. Having access to professional management and streamlining processes that can improve the financial performance as well as the operational efficiency. And so what does that look like in real life, in real time throughout the day? Well, in private practice, sometimes we feel limited being able to have enough people to recruit, or hiring someone internally, and maybe we have great people that are good at what they do, but not necessarily the bandwidth role. So with private equity, that sometimes that can give more of an opportunity, that they're able to bring a backing of operations with some administrative staff that are built in to help identify opportunities. The cons for private equity are that sometimes a potential loss of clinical independence. When you're used to being a private practice, having the ability to make decisions, and sometimes, the smaller the practice, not having as many people involved, sometimes it feels like it's not as much red tape to get through to make a decision. And that can subsequently lead to making faster decisions. So just losing that clinical independence. Another con of being part of a private equity is possible disruption to team culture. Now, we've all heard some of the stories of joining private equity and losing the culture, or feeling that there's just more focused on numbers versus patient care. But there's been some really good things that have happened over the last few years with not all private equities scale and sell. Some of them come in, and as long as you have the right people in place and you're aligning and you're making really great decisions on who do you choose to be a part of if you're moving forward in private equity, then you can retain some of those things. It might feel different, but able to align and move forward in a very positive way. So it's not always a disruption to team culture, but just like anything else, doing the due diligence before joining to be a part of something can ensure that things move seamlessly and that employees still feel supported and aren't fearful of a corporate change. Now, in private practice, the pros for that are physician autonomy, physicians being able to make decisions, to come together as a self-governed body and make decisions together, to be able to get feedback from employees and run that through leadership, because it is a smaller setting, and so able to make decisions a little quicker sometimes, just having that autonomy, as well as having stronger patient and provider relationships. Typically in a private practice, it is going to be smaller than a really large private equity group. And because of that, oftentimes the patients can feel that they have more of a provider relationship. That's not to say that it doesn't happen in private equity. It all depends on the intentionality and how you're able to run your clinic. But definitely in private practice, I've seen firsthand those strong patient provider relationships. Now, some cons for being a part of a private practice are that the not really having the resources to grow and to invest, right? And so having the limited resources to grow and invest could cause a struggle to fund new technology or maybe even expand services. So not having as much capital to work with. Another con of being part of a private practice is it could cause you to be more vulnerable to the market competition. Independent practices face increasing pressures from larger consolidated system from the larger consolidated systems that private equity groups have. So sometimes private practices will choose to join a private equity group to help them feel less vulnerable and being able to be competitive, having a lot more access to technology quicker. So now let's talk a little bit about innovation and research. So what's on the horizon? What's coming up? There are so many exciting things coming down the pipeline in clinical research. If you've had an opportunity, whether you're a certified clinical research site or not, I encourage you to read what's going on in the biospace. It's very exciting. We often think about more in the retina space of research in ophthalmology, but there's lots of research going on outside of the retina subspecialty. So just a few of these I have listed here. If you've not heard of the smart contact lens, it is exciting. Researchers have developed a prototype smart lens that is capable of accurately measuring the eye pressure throughout varying temperatures. And you think about in previous days where we bring patients in for a diurnal curve, where we might check their pressure intermittently throughout the day to see where their IOP spikes are. Well, this particular contact lens will wirelessly transmit real-time data in the IOP. This breakthrough could really pave the way for more reliable, non-invasive glaucoma management. And think about this. This could be a real game changer in the glaucoma space, as well as senolytics for diabetic macular edema. So there's some great research coming through. We know that diabetic macular edema can lead to nasty tractional retinal detachments. It can lead to neovascular glaucoma. There's so many things within controlling what's going on in the eye due to diabetic pathology. And then the radiotherapy for wet AMD. That is a radiotherapy that is targeting the lead, if you will, for wet AMD. And this is exciting, as well as ocular melanoma. So there's phototherapy that is in the trial process coming down the pipeline for ocular melanoma, which is not just sight-saving, it's life-saving as well. Thinking more along the lines of innovation, for the tools for tomorrow are when we think of artificial intelligence. I know for me, when I first started hearing about artificial intelligence, I thought, oh my gosh, we're moving more towards robots. And there's really a lot of excitement, I think, the more that we educate ourselves in what is artificial intelligence and how can we use it to leverage what we're doing. Patients are using it, and they're using it in everyday life, and they're used to some of these platforms. And so we have to kind of pivot and adjust as well. And so I think it's the most important thing I would say about AI is there's never going to not have a need for human connection. There's always going to be a need for someone who can better explain or maybe talk through and answer a question. Not everything is going to move 100% towards AI. So we're not wiping out the industry for humans to have jobs. And I know that can feel scary. So let's talk a little bit about it. With some of the platforms for AI, specifically in ophthalmology, you want to think about what are some of the laborious areas that you have that platforms can help with. Maybe it's patient engagement tools where they're able to communicate with you and your practice in real time. It may be claim scrubbing, so something that is running behind the scenes to allow those claims to go out and be approved on the first time, which increases how fast we get revenue in, as well as how efficiently we're able to continue to bring in revenue. And then also some of the virtual assistants. So there's virtual assistants in various areas. It could be for appointments, some for triage. You see, I saw a job that was listed the other day, and it was hiring for an AI platform. I'm not sure if it was ChatGPT or which platform it was, but they were looking for ophthalmology gurus that are able to answer what these questions are. It can also help create content. So from a marketing perspective, being able to use our marketing teams more efficiently. And then software systems and equipment. So when we think about AI with software systems and equipment, not AI for that, but the technology of software systems and equipment, there is always new equipment that's coming out. But one of the questions that you need to ask yourself before jumping in and getting a piece of equipment is, what is the formula that you're using for your investment? Are you looking at the ROI of that? Can you demo it in advance? Is there an opportunity to talk to other clients maybe that have adopted the technology that blaze the trail ahead of you to talk to you about pros and cons? So whether it be an EHR system, maybe it's a software imaging system, it may be some platforms that integrate and speak to other systems that you already have. So will decision increase reimbursement or efficiencies in your practice? Because time is money. So you want to be sure when you're thinking about leveraging technology, whether it be AI or the software systems or diagnostic equipment, that you're really considering all aspects of this. You want to be on the forefront of bringing in technology. Do your due diligence, because patients are researching what practices have the best technology. They're better informed and are making decisions based on that. So those are just some things to think about as you move forward to stay on the cutting edge of innovation. So let's talk a little bit about expectations. There seemed to be a real shift in expectations. We've seen everybody, we always kind of go back to COVID, but even before COVID, I started seeing this shift in expectations of patients as well as employees. And not only that, another column that could have been listed on here is even providers. So first, let's talk about the patients. Patients are researching now. They have higher expectations because they have access to technology to research. They're asking questions. They're comparing pricing. They are wanting to be responded to in a responsive, in a timely manner. Patients are giving us more feedback. They're doing Google reviews. You even see reviews that are on Yelp, which is interesting to me to find those in healthcare. I've always thought of those more in the service or hospitality industry, but patients they're more communicative and they want feedback from us. And they want options. So they're looking for, just like we spoke on the previous slide about innovation and technology, they want to know that they have options. They want to choose the best lenses. They want the best frames to choose from. They want to know that whatever glaucoma surgery they're choosing, that is going to be the best possible option. So I think patients have really stepped up what their expectations are. And because of that, we have to step up how we deliver care. Our employees as well have really changed what their expectations are. It used to be, I've seen over the last several years in interviewing, that the interview process was more that we would ask questions to the candidate. And oftentimes they might ask a question or two. But if you've done interviewing for any length of time as an administrator, you have probably noticed over the last few years that candidates are showing up with more questions. They're invested in the process. They are, and as it should be, kudos to them, because it is a relationship. It's not that we're just hiring them. It is a two-way street. And so oftentimes they're coming very well prepared. They're looking for culture, and it's not just a buzzword. It's not something that we put on a wall anymore with an atta girl and we spotlight someone. Culture is, how do we engage our people? How do we keep them engaged? How do we give them a voice? What are the values? And what is the collective vision that you're moving towards? And so employees will choose a job that pays less money for a better culture than going somewhere with a poor culture to make $1 or $2 more an hour. So it's really important that we think about this. And these things don't happen by chance. Culture does not happen by accident. There has to be intentionality from an organizational standpoint, with a buy-in from all of leadership to provide that. Employees are looking for opportunity to grow, eager as we see different changes in the different generations of people that we lead. We have so many different generations that are working now in the workplace and are really looking for opportunity to grow. Some exciting, hungry generations, and we have to think proactively about what can we offer them so that they can grow. Because if they don't grow with us, they'll grow somewhere else. And then how do we invest in our people? Employees, oftentimes I know that it feels like sitting around a table as leaders trying to figure out how to make your staff feel valued, and all people feel valued differently. And so I think offering different ways to invest in them, whether it's educational opportunities to grow. It could be that you have lunch and learns, that you're investing in them from a development perspective. Maybe you offer key trainings from time to time, or even personal development and professional development. So these are some things to think about as we move forward. So looking ahead, we've talked about several different things today in terms of just the innovation, workforce, expectations, and practice models. So how do we put all of that together? Well, I think first and foremost, we're just now at the beginning of the second quarter of this year. So we're still fairly early on in the year. And to be able to have an operational plan, if you've not created one with your team, maybe even the executive directors that serve on your board of physicians, but to really align so that you have a plan. And how are you going to get there? If you want to complete a project by December of 2025, what do you need to be doing now to do that? And not just having a plan for this year, but a plan as well for where do you want to be 5 years from now? When we think about all these industry changes that we've talked about that we know are coming, if we're not proactive, we're just being reactive, and then we're behind. We're behind the 8 ball on it. So we have to plan ahead, have strategic initiatives that are in place so that you can be intentional in breaking things down on your team. Who is strong at what? And allow people to pitch in and lean into their strengths so that you're not having to carry it all. I think sometimes as administrators, we feel like we should be the doers of everything. But once you're in a higher level role or even mid-level, you have to start thinking more long-term focused and not be the doer in the trenches all the time. But how can you provide guidance and support and clarity, and maybe just come in and align from time to time to allow your people to grow and help you get where you're trying to go to together. And then you're going to face challenges, being able to adapt and pivot as there's changes in the government regulations, changes in declining in the reimbursement from year to year. How do you diversify so that you can offset what some of these challenges are? So if there's a decrease in reimbursement in one area, what's an elective area that you can really focus on educating your patients better on so that they know that there are other options out there? So really being able to adapt and have a plan, because you will hit roadblocks no matter what business model you work in, PE or private practice, you're going to hit roadblocks. So being able to adapt, as well as investing, just the continuous investing. When you plan, be transparent with your people. Share what you can when you can. There may be confidential initiatives that you're not able to share all of the details on, but at a broader perspective, you can say, here's where we collectively want to get together. And when you get that buy-in from your team, then you're able to give them pieces. You have to create that trust and transparency first, and then allow them to come in at the right time into certain projects and say, hey, Samantha, this is the part that you're really strong at. I'm going to give this part to you. Allow people to start working together and crossing over, especially across departments. Sometimes we will work within our own teams unintentionally, but it's really important that you pull in key leaders from different departments and that you are collaborating interdepartmentally. I think that this is a good way to really think about how you want to address the rest of the year and look even more long term down the road so that you can start strategizing with your team.
Our next webinar is going to be kind of talking about similar things as what Mandy just did. And she talked about professional development, developing your staff. Well, we're going to look at that from a different angle. We're going to look at it from a medical liability angle, and how investing in your staff and professional development and training is a simple way to improve patient care, which in turn can decrease your risk of liability events. You can register at www.itechtraining.com/ enhancing dash patient dash safety. And we look forward to seeing you on May 8th. Go
All right.
ahead.
If anyone has any questions, feel free to pop in and ask a question. And as well as Sharon and I both have our contact information on here, as well as the website. And so feel free, you could reach out and email. And we are very thankful that you have joined us. We've had several of you return each month for this series that we did on operational clarity. And kudos to you for taking time out of your busy schedules to learn how to lead your practice well. And if anyone has any questions now, we'll take those. And for those of you that don't, thank you so much for joining us.